Hello and welcome to the podcast Sunsets and Rainbows. I'm your host, Agnes Jensen, and this is the podcast where we talk about life, loss, faith, and motherhood, and some more things that are usually brushed under the rug. Hello, everyone. Today I have Vaishali with me. Me and Vaishali connected in 2020 after the loss of my son, Elliot, and we've been friends ever since, going through this journey of loss and infertility together. And to say a few words about Vaishali, she's a womb cancer survivor and she has gone through multiple fertility treatments, and she has had lost her daughter at 22 weeks in her pregnancy, and she has gone through a couple more early miscarriages, and right now she has taken a hard decision to pursue surrogacy. And today we're going to dive into these topics and hear about her journey more. Hello, Vaishali. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
um,
Thank you for having me.
so my first question for you today is, you have gone through womb cancer, you have gone through multiple fertility treatments, you have gone through three losses, baby loss, and now you are pursuing the surrogacy journey. And what can you tell me about who is Vaishali outside of all these struggles?
What can I tell you? Well, I can tell you that I am almost 40. I've been married for almost 9 years to the most amazing man. Um, I'm a wife. I'm an ex-teacher. I now work in child safeguarding. And I think most importantly, I'm a mum to our, our shining star, Jaya.
You mentioned that you are an ex-teacher and now you are working with the child safeguard. Um,
Yeah, child safeguarding, yeah.
yeah, and why the change? Is it because of the baby loss? Can I ask a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I left teaching in 2022. So it's been about just over 18 months. I left because, and I've taught 3 to 4 year olds since I started teaching, um, and Jaya was born in August 2019, but should have been born in December 2019. So in January 2023, she would have been in the class that I was teaching. And I started to struggle with that thought maybe a month or two um, before I left, or maybe a bit longer, so 6 months before her due date anniversary. And things weren't really going well at the place that I was working. I wasn't happy. And I just realized that I couldn't do the job and teach children who would have been her age. So I took the decision to see what else was out there, and luckily I got lucky and found another job, one that I can still help children, just not directly anymore. So it's just more kind of back office sort of.
Is child safeguard department that you're working in, do you also deal with a lot of traumatic um, stories, and how does that affect you having gone through baby loss and infertility?
So there is a lot of, there's horrible stories. A lot of what we deal with is child death and children that have come to like severe harm or are being neglected. So it is very difficult. You have to read a lot of material. that can be quite, that I guess should be quite triggering.
Mm,
But I think I'm just able to compartmentalize and just, I guess, put it in a box. I've been lucky enough, I guess, that I haven't really been overly affected by some of the stories that we've had to hear. And obviously, they're real children, they're real
mm,
families. But I think not being part of working directly with the family probably does
mm,
help. So, that's really important. But strangely enough, um, I've been doing some campaigning this year for SANS in the
mm,
UK. It's a baby loss charity, and they had a report that came out earlier no, actually late last year. It's
mm,
called the Listening Project. And in one of the strategic meetings that our team takes part in, it's come up that they want to do something to improve the baby loss statistics in the area that I work in. So in our local authority,
mm,
and my manager has kind of put me forward to support the working group, um, because obviously it's a cause that's quite close to my heart,
mm,
um, about inequalities in healthcare, in maternity care. So they're actually going to be doing some work around it, which is quite exciting. I
mm,
don't know when that's going to happen, but it's just nice that maybe I can make a difference in my work life as well as
mhm.
in my personal campaigning with SANS. So that's quite exciting, something
Yeah,
that's coming up.
yeah, that's quite nice to hear that you're able to compartmentalize, and it actually helps not to be in a triggering place. I think personally, if I was in your shoes and working personally with the families, that might have been too much. Yeah. When did you start trying, and can you tell me a little bit about what happened, the initial excitement, and how was the journey to get to the motherhood?
So we got married in 2015, and
Mm,
about a year later, I was, I said, me and Rahul talked about we should start trying for a baby. And early that year, I'd started to experience like really, really heavy bleeding, and I just put it down to stress. Talked to a couple of
mm,
friends about it. They were like, "Oh, you're probably stressed. Like you're struggling with finding, a new job. Um, you're living in a new place. Like you miss your family, you miss your friends, that sort of thing." And I kind of chalked it up to, okay, maybe that's what it
mm,
is. Um, Even though I would bleed. I was going through a pad sometimes. I'd change my sanitary towel, come downstairs, I'd bleed that much, I had to go back up and change. And then I was doubling up on pads and then a tampon as well. So, and I was changing maybe every hour at one point. And I started having bleeding in between my period as well. So I went to the doctor, they gave me some tablets and, sent me on my way. And then in the August, so no, yeah, July, August time, I went home
mm,
and I like spoke to a friend, and she said, "Why don't you just get referred for fertility problems? Like, just say you've been trying for a year." So obviously, I went to the doctor. I lied. Said I've been trying for a year. Can you please? I've got a history of PCOS, all of that. Can you please just refer me to a gynecologist? So I went to the gynecologist. They did some standard testing, so an HSG, which is they tried to like put fluid to check your tubes and everything's fine, like through uterus. And after that procedure, I started having random bleeding, and I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" So went
mm,
back, complained about the bleeding, and they ended up doing a scan, and they said they'd found a polyp in my uterus. Nothing to worry about, quite common. But
mm,
the consultant said, "Well, we'll have to remove the polyp because you can't get, it's going to be hard to get pregnant with a polyp in your uterus. So that could be what's stopping it. So let's do that. At the same time, let's do a laparoscopy and dye, which is where they go through your belly button and they try and push fluid through your fallopian tubes to check that they're not blocked. And then at the same time, she said, we know you've got polycystic ovaries, let's just do some ovarian drilling. And that, I think that gets rid of all the cysts. And so that should help you get pregnant. So they did the procedure in March 2017, said like, everything went fine. We found lots of little polyps in your uterus. We're going to send it off for testing. It's just standard. Don't worry about it. We'll see you in, I think they said 4 weeks, because obviously it's not difficult. The laparoscopy, I think recovery time is about 4 weeks. They want you to just come back after a month. So, so I was off work. Rahul was working. So he took me to London, and I spent like a week and a half with my parents. I think I was meant to be there for a couple of weeks. So got to about, I want to say, maybe 10 days into my stay, and I get a phone call from the hospital. And they're like, we need you to come in tomorrow, please. And I said, look, I can't. I'm in London, but I am going to be back early next week. Do you have an appointment on Monday? So they were like, yep, fine, no problem. Here's your appointment time. And then, before you go, please can you make sure you bring someone with you? Now, bear in mind, I didn't take him to any of my appointments before that. So as soon as they said that, the first thing I thought was, oh no, swear word really, oh shit, something's wrong. So I spoke to him later that evening, told him the conversation with the doctor, and I was like, I think something serious is wrong, because why would they call me back this early, but also why would they want you to come with me? So it was Mother's Day weekend, that weekend. So he came to get me, we went back, did the Mother's Day thing with his family, and then Monday morning at the hospital, and went to see the gynecologist. And that's when she told me, I'm really sorry. Well, they don't just do that. They go through your entire history. Like, you came to me in whatever month, and we performed this piece of surgery, and we did this, 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 and this. And then she was like, the testing's come back, and I'm really sorry to tell you that we found cancer. So yeah, that was the cancer story.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of expected, but also not expected. The weird thing was that the nurse who called us in, she was a oncology nurse. Obviously, I didn't look at her name tag or anything, but if I had, I probably would have been more prepared. And it wasn't until after that I realised that, I kind of should have seen this coming, because it's on her name label. So yeah, that was cancer.
You said it was kind of expected and was not. How did you expect it? Did you guess it from before, or?
I'm pretty sure I said to Rahul, I'm like, it could be cancer, and I think obviously we were hoping that it wouldn't be, but I guess you have an inkling. Like I'd been to so many appointments, and I'd never been asked to bring somebody with me ever. Never ever had I ever been asked to bring
Yeah.
somebody with me to an appointment. So that was kind of the first, I guess, red flag that there was something not quite right here, because they'd quite clearly said, other than that my tubes were blocked when they did the surgery initially, they said that your tubes were blocked, like one completely blocked, the other one maybe there was a chance that some fluid actually came through, but she couldn't be 100% sure. She said she might have seen. So like there was nothing else that had gone wrong surgery wise. The only thing that it could have been was the results from the from I guess the material that they'd
Mm.
collected, the sample.
Yeah. And also, like, when you heard the news, like, what was your reaction? What was Rahul like? Did you guys able to fathom what was told to you? And also, there, I know, like, when I heard the word cancer, all I can think of is death. Because I have lost my grandmother to cancer, and a lot of the cancer stories that I heard unfortunately ended in death. So, but there are also several stages in cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So did they also explain you what stage you were in and what does that mean and the treatment options and so on?
Yeah, so I guess when they first told us, I think we were both in shock. The first thing I
Mm,
thought was, what is he thinking? And then the
mm,
second thought was, how am I going to tell my parents?
mm,
Um, and yeah, I did think, am I going to die? But they did explain that it was quite a very early stage,
mm,
and there there are fertility sparing options available, and that she had referred me already to a colleague of hers at our local hospital to come up with a treatment plan. And I guess we kind of had to go from there. So
mm,
I think it was a couple of weeks before we had our first appointment. Um, I was extremely lucky that I've got a cousin, and at the time his fiance, who live in Liverpool, and she's a guy an obs and gynae, or she was an obs and gynae at the time.
mm,
So I'd called my cousin to say, "This is what I've been told. What do I do?" And
mm,
he was on his way back from his stag party, and he was like, "Me and my fiance will come tonight. We'll come and see you." And she came, and she kind of the good thing about her was that she was very direct and straight to the point and gave me
mm,
the absolute worst case scenario, which was,
mm,
the worst thing that can happen here is you'll have to have a hysterectomy. So she wanted to prepare
mm,
me for it. And it sounds really harsh for anybody who's probably listening, but actually, I really appreciated it because I knew what the worst thing could be if it came to
mm,
it. But obviously, that's not what that's not really what happened in the end.
mm,
Um, I was really lucky that they gave me the option, because I was so young, to try
mm,
fertility sparing treatment,
mm,
which was high dose progesterone, so hormone treatment, and then we moved on to the Mirena coil, because that was
mm,
shown to also be a good treatment option for uterine cancer. And to do that, we worked really closely with a doctor at a Manchester hospital, who is like a leading researcher in gynecological cancer. So she's had some good results, and that's what we ended up doing. And good job we did, because so we got diagnosed in April, and by the October I was cancer free, but not pre-cancer free. So there was still
What is the difference? What is the difference between cancer free and pre cancer free?
So before you get the cancer, there's a stage before called precancer, which is atypical
Mm,
hyperplasia.
mhm,
There's two types of that. There's hyperplasia and there's atypical. And atypical leads to cancer
mhm,
generally, and non-atypical doesn't. Um, so so if you've got atypical hyperplasia, it's that essentially what they say is that it's difficult to conceive, or you can't conceive. So they had to clear all of that, and that took another year to do.
mm,
So I was in treatment that first time for about a year and a half, and I think a year and 2 months of that was was with the coil, was with the Mirena.
Mhm. Essentially, and also like Marina is a birth control coil. I just want to explain to people, and it's surprisingly this has been a remedy for a lot of things, including cancer. So it actually surprises me. You wanted to get pregnant, and then you were diagnosed with cancer, and then you are put on
Birth
a
control.
birth control. And it's funny as it sounds, and also they did that to me. Like I explained to my one of my family members that when we went for fertility treatments, the very first thing that they did was to put me on a birth control for a few months, and it's very counterproductive. And but apparently Marina is a thing for a lot of things.
I've heard it's good for endometriosis. They are using it with fibroids, with ovarian cysts, with
Yeah.
uterine cancer. It's just it's madness. But for me, it was probably the better option because with the high
Mm,
dose progesterone tablets,
yeah.
I was putting on weight.
Mm,
I was already overweight, and I put on even more weight after. Well, I just couldn't shift it. And I
mm,
was told by the doctor, like, you need to lose weight. And in my head, I just thought, but I'm trying. I'm going to the gym like as much as I can, but I'm exhausted. I'm also working, and but these tablets are not helping. So then
mm,
I told them I don't want to do the tablets anymore. I need you to put me on. I need you to put the coil in
mm,
because I I need a better way to do what I need to do, which is to lose the weight.
mhm.
Um, but that's quite hard because obviously my whole life I've been called fat, my entire life.
Wow.
And then you have a doctor telling you that you're fat too, which is just great. Well done, NHS. Like really, really helpful.
It actually quite makes me angry to think about, like, I also have history of PCOS, and I have also had ovarian cyst. Luckily no surgeries or anything, but the only thing they told me was to lose weight, and I was not losing weight because of the hormone fluctuation. It is what is causing it.
Yeah,
So
and they think it's really easy, but it's not. And it was interesting because I was also seeing like a counselor at the time, and when I
mm,
went and told him, he was really angry when I told him this. He
mm,
was like, I cannot believe you have been told that. And essentially, what they're saying is because you're overweight, it caused your cancer. So they're blaming you for it. And that is pretty much what they were saying. And then I was told, like, you have to keep your BMI under 25. My BMI is
under
still not under 25. And I know that's what they class as normal. But if my BMI was 25, I don't think I would look right. It would not suit me. I think my BMI has been under 25 once in my life, and I got told I look ill. So I'm not sure
like
BMI of 25 is going to work for me. And I still haven't really hit that, and I'm not really that bothered about it. But, you know, I did the work, I lost the weight. I think I lost 18, 18 kilograms over the course of two, a year and a half. Yeah, about 18
wow.
kilograms in a year and a half. Um, and yeah, I managed to keep it off for the most part. So, you know, thanks, Doctor, Mister, whatever his name was.
What? It's just I do not know what to say. It just makes me angry. Whenever I hear people are not given the option of fertility because your BMI has to be this and this. And I know like they have rules also in Denmark that your BMI should be around, I do not know exactly, but it shouldn't be more than this. If you're more than this, then you're actually not eligible for fertility treatments. I'm helpless. It's not out of my own will that I'm gaining all this weight. Right. So you've got cancer diagnosis and then you have put on Marina coil. What happened meanwhile? with the family, with Rahul, and how were you guys coping after this news?
We weren't. We weren't coping. Um,
Mm,
I remember I remember writing him like a letter because obviously I was at home for about 6 to 8 weeks after my diagnosis. Well, I went back to work, and within 3 days I basically called in sick because I couldn't cope. And I was I wasn't sleeping. I would like leave the house at like 8 at night and go to the gym for an hour, or whatever. I would like I'd sleep a lot. I was baking a lot. Um,
mm,
I was sad. I was sad. And I remember writing him a letter, basically saying that like I was sorry and I wouldn't blame you if you left me, and like that's that sort of thing. Like,
mm,
and I think maybe even at that time I don't know if I want to be here. Like, I don't know if I don't know if I can do this. And, um, it felt quite hopeless, but we were just putting on a front the whole time. Like, you couldn't, I felt like I couldn't really express how I was feeling, and I had to protect everybody else from it. But also, there were already problems in the family. We were already having issues with the family, and like his brother was getting married, and then his sister was getting married, and there was this expectation that we would do all the helping and stuff. And I was quite happy to do that, but we were also like every 4 months, I think it was every 4 months at that point, I was going in for a procedure, a D&C, to check if the cancer had gone or the pre-cancer had gone. So we would get so in the background, there's all this really happy, fun, amazing stuff happening on the outside that we're expected to like be available and around for. But in the background, we're arguing. Um, like, I'm not feeling good about all of this. I'm stressed and anxious because every 4 months I'm going for appointments, and like to check that if the cancer's gone, because obviously once the cancer's gone we can start IVF. Um, so it was just like you just didn't know whether you were coming or going. Like, we couldn't book a holiday, we couldn't we couldn't plan like 3-4 months ahead. We couldn't do anything,
mm,
um, because at any point we could get the news to say, okay, right, great, you, your biopsy's come back completely clear, and right, we're gonna start with IVF. So just felt like life was a bit of a standstill, but we would just kind of fake it to make it, right?
mm. It almost sounds insensitive for me because not only you have to be available for the happiness of the family, but you are also forced to prepare or to help in the process while you are going through something suffering. Did people not understand the depth of what you were going through? Did they know actually the depth of what you were going through? Like,
We couldn't plan anything. Everything was just up in the air for us. But the expectation was that we would show up and be there at everybody's beck and call, because they want, and what we had going on was irrelevant. That's how it felt. Whether it was meant that way or not, that's how it felt to
mm,
me. And actually, for people to complain that I am not helping when I've got all of this going on in the background, I think is really unfair.
wow. Well, I do not want to generalize this, but I do think in Indian culture and in South Asian culture, this is this has been normal. this has been normalized in many ways, that when we are suffering ourselves, because this also happened, like my personal experiences also, I involved myself in a lot of things to fix, resolve, and to be on top of problems while I was going through the loss of Elliot. And I felt it so unfair. And I raised my opinions about it, and I was told that
You're the problem.
exactly, yeah, like
Yeah.
basically that.
It's like nobody wants
I'm the
to,
insensitive one,
yeah.
and I'm the overreacting, or
Yeah.
I'm the not understanding one. After the loss, I become mad. These are the responses I got. I was like, I need time to grieve. I can't be on top of this problem right now. This is not my problem to solve.
No, no, I understand that. And I think, you just talked about grieving there, and you talked about grieving Elliot, but
Mm,
I wasn't allowed to grieve the fact that I had a cancer diagnosis. I wasn't allowed to
mm,
grieve that I couldn't conceive naturally anymore. I didn't have time to do that because it was just like, your problems are not important. So it's just really hard because nobody wants to be uncomfortable.
mm,
You need to keep your mouth shut, don't share what's going on, and make them all feel good about stuff. So
mm,
I was contacted really early on by a charity called the Eve Appeal, and I ended up um, they didn't write an article about like my story, and then I got interviewed by a local radio station, and
mm,
that was it was like I'd done the worst thing. Like it was really shameful what I'd done.
mm,
But then on the flip side, I went to a wedding on my mum's side, and some of my cousins and like my uncle and like everyone's drinking, like everyone's a bit drunk, and like one of them kind of put his arm around me and he was like, "I'm so proud of you for sharing your story and for raising
mm,
awareness. It's really important." And I just thought, wow, this is the reaction that there should
mm,
be, because it's not shameful to talk about things that are
mm,
out there. I didn't know what womb cancer or uterine cancer was when I got diagnosed. I had no idea it existed. So how many women out there like me are there? How many people don't know the signs? How many people think it's normal to have like a really heavy period and like it will just fix itself? If I hadn't been going for fertility treatment at that point in time, who knows how much it would have progressed? I don't know. If I had
right.
waited, if I had waited the full 12 months
Mm,
from like that February or that April to the year after to go to the gynecologist, we could be having a very different conversation right now.
yes.
Like it could have been, right, that's it, straight hysterectomy. I was lucky
Mm,
it was staged at grade 1 at the time, so it was very
mm,
treatable. And the treatment options were, to be honest, quite easy in
mm,
comparison to having chemotherapy and radiation.
mm,
Having a hormone tablet, a high dose
mm,
hormone tablet in comparison is was the easier option, but it could have been worse if I'd left it. I'm lucky I got
mm,
given the advice I got given when it was given to me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
I'm lucky that friend said what she said,
mm,
and because I knew that we might struggle to have children because of my PCOS, it was that push that, okay, right, yeah, okay, I'd better go and get it checked out just to be on the safe side. So,
mm,
I was lucky. Lucky at
mm,
the time and lucky to be where I was at the time, because even though all this other outside stress was happening, the my oncology team were great. They're amazing. Couldn't
mhm,
ask for better. I'm still under them, so it is really good.
mhm. So, Vaishali, now you are cleared for cancer. and you hear from the doctor that you can jump right back on IVF treatments. Um, what happened?
So it was a really strange thing. So we had the consultation, that all went fine. Weirdly enough, the consultant said um, that you're more likely to get pregnant naturally than you are with IVF. And I was like, yeah, maybe for normal people, but for me, like I've got blocked tubes, so I don't know how you think I'm going to get pregnant. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, a weird thing to say. So I think that might have been maybe the maybe the November time, November, December, and then we were due to do our first cycle in the February, but one of Rahul's blood tests came back a bit strange, so we had to redo all of that, and then also had to I had to have my they realized that my smear was out of date, my smear test. So I had to go and have that again. And the nurse at the hospital was really angry because she said that you have got a patient here who has a history of cancer and you have not given her a smear test and she is overdue by 2 years. So should have had one. Her last pap smear was 5 years ago, and you have not given her one when she's meant to have one. I think it's every 3 years at that point. So she got mad, got me in really quickly, and then we had to do that and then wait for the next cycle to start the IVF round. So we started the IVF round in March. I did my first injection towards the end of March that year, and it was the day that my two best friends had come up for the first weekend that they'd come to visit me, and it was really nice. It was really strange. I did my injections while they were here, and they were the ones with me when I did my first injections. It was nice, but it was weird, but it was nice. And we were just really lucky that that first round worked. And it was around the time there was a family wedding, and it was, we found out just before, and we were just really, really happy and just so excited, and just thought, oh wow, what a miracle that this has worked first time, because we knew what the odds were, like 1 in 3, and all the stats that you get. And so it was just really, really surprising. I really, really shocked that it worked first time. So that was quite exciting. And my pregnancy went really well. Another family member was also pregnant at the same time, and I was quite excited because it was like, oh, like our kids will be like a similar age and they're about a month apart, and this will be really good. And all my scans went fine, no problems. I was feeling okay after the first trimester. It was all good. And then after my 20-week scan, we told by the time we had our 20 weeks, I mean, we told most people at that point that we saw. We didn't do a big announcement like on social media or anything. We kept it quite quiet and just kind of told people in dribs and drabs, because 2 people that I knew had recently experienced baby loss. So I was quite aware that there really isn't really a safe zone, but you still don't think it's going to happen to you. So just before 22 weeks, I started experiencing some leaking, and we called the hospital. They said they didn't seem concerned. Like I explained on the phone, like I'm high risk, I'm IVF pregnancy. This is what I'm experiencing. What do I do? They said lie down, put a pad on, and in about half an hour, check if the pad is wet or dry. If it's like, give me a call back. So did that, got up, pad was dry. And so they were just like, just keep an eye on it, you'll be fine. I'm like, no problem. I said, okay, do you need me to come in? And they said no. And my dad was downstairs waiting. because he was ready to take me to the hospital just to get checked. And he was like, "Are you sure you don't want to go?" And hindsight's a really great thing. And I wish I'd said yes. I wish at that point I'd said, "Yeah, actually, Dad, let's just go just to be on the safe side." Um, so the following day, we were due to fly out on holiday. And we went because didn't think anything was, the doctor said everything's fine. Like the hospital said everything's fine. So we got on the plane, got to Italy, wandered around for a bit, and then I started feeling ill, thinking that it was just really hot. So I started feeling a bit ill, and we went back to the hotel room, the apartment really, and I took a nap. I woke up, I was freezing, but I was burning up. So we had to find a hospital. We went to the hospital, had to use Google Translate to like explain what had happened. So like I was like typing it in my phone and like showing, like having them read what was happening so they could understand in Italian. And they took me up to like the gynecology department. And they did a scan. They like basically stripped me top half and did like like heart scans and all that sort of stuff. And they admitted me. They said that I had an infection. So at this point, I'm scared because I don't know the language. I don't know what to do. Message my siblings and tell them what's happened. And the first thing my sister and brother-in-law said was, "Do you want us to come? That we can get on the next flight?" And like we said no because we thought actually we're being looked after. It's fine. The next morning, a new doctor was there. My fever had come down. They put me on a paracetamol drip and all of that. And he said that normally we treat this infection that you've got with penicillin. I'm allergic to penicillin, so they didn't really know what to do with me. So they were like, "We're happy for you to go home, but go straight to the hospital when you get there. But we can't give you antibiotics in case you don't then have the same antibiotic in the UK to continue your treatment." Um, so we booked a flight, pretty much packed our stuff and went straight back to the airport. And while I was on the plane, I started getting cramping. I thought it was just like I was like constipated. Went straight to the hospital. By this point, then I was like shivering, and a fever had come back. Got to the hospital. I think my temperature was like 41. Maybe got seen after maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. My parents managed to get to the hospital by that point. And my mum was like, "What's happening?" And I just kind of said to her, "I'm just really cold and I've got bad stomach pains. I think I'm constipated." She just gave me a really weird look because I was like, "I just got really bad gas." She gave me a really weird look. I didn't think anything of it at the time. And then we went into the doctor came to see us and she examined me and she basically said, like, you're 3 centimeters dilated. And essentially she was saying, like, you're in early labor. But she also said that you're only 3 centimeters. There is a chance that once we put you on like the antibiotics and stuff, that you would just be on bed rest now until, for the next 18 weeks or whatever. So we told my parents. My dad swore. He doesn't normally swear, like he's not a swearer. And they admitted me overnight. Next morning, the doctors came to examine. They did the ultrasound and they said there's no fluid around the baby. So, and then when the registrar was also checking my cervix, she said, I can see the feet. So at this point, they said, you're going to have to give birth, and at that point, they basically were like, your baby is not going to survive, like it's too little. It's underdeveloped. And they explained all that. And I think within two hours, I gave birth to Jaya. She came out feet first, which was interesting, with a hand on her face like that. And yeah, 14 minutes later, she died in my arms.
Can you describe that 14 minutes for me?
I remember it was really quick. I remember that she smelt strange, and I remember asking the midwives, and they were like, "It's the infection. That's what you're smelling." And she, when me and Rahul were talking, like she tilted her head up like towards our voices, so she clearly recognised us. Like her eyes were closed. Like I don't know if babies can open their eyes at that point, like at that early gestation. But she was looking up like towards us when we spoke. The midwives taking pictures on our phones and with their cameras, and I don't remember crying. And I think because she was still breathing for so much, like for like, I guess that's quite a long time. It doesn't, when you think about 40 minutes is not a long time, but I guess it was quite a long time for a baby of her.
And by yourself?
Yeah. So it's me and
Yeah.
Rahul were there, right? So I don't think that, I don't, yeah, I guess they must have thought that, oh, maybe there's something we can do. And then when they said to the doctor, oh, look, she's still breathing, then she stopped. And I was still holding her when the afterbirth was starting, and I had to give her to Rahul. And then I was just basically like hemorrhaging at that point. They were trying to remove the placenta. It was coming out like in pieces. They couldn't get it all. I had to go to surgery. I left. Obviously, Jaya was left with Rahul. So he was holding her when I left. And I guess all I remember is him. Sorry, like him sat there with tears rolling down his face. And I just remember thinking, like, I need to be strong. And like, I can't cry. Um, and I think just after that, I was just in shock. I think that kind of just stayed with me. Like, I have to be strong. I have to be strong. Um, and yeah, and then obviously the next thing I know, I'm back in the room after having the surgery. Yeah. Sorry, I got you started as well.
No, I mean, I don't think we could have, because I remember that moment so well as well. Like, it's just, I don't think I can describe it in words.
You can't.
Those times that I had with him, the thoughts that went through our head, and to look at Yeppe going through what he was going through, and to I'm really glad I took the pictures. I'm really glad we took the pictures. I thought it was like when the midwives were trying to take pictures of us, I was like, this doesn't even make sense. Why do we need pictures of him or anything at all? And I remember the midwife explaining to me, you will be glad that you had this.
See, I think our midwives didn't really explain why they just did it. But I wish I had thought to take pictures of her with my mum and my dad, my sister and my brother-in-law. I wish I'd thought to do that. And I didn't now I wish I had those pictures, but I didn't know at the time that I would want them, and I wish we had more. I wish we'd spent more time with her. I wish I'd known what to do, and I wish I'd asked somebody, what shall I do? And I think even if I had asked, I don't know if I would have done what they said, but like I wish we had taken more time. Um, I wish she'd met more of my family, but I didn't know how they would react. Like I think both I did both my best friends come that evening. I think one of them did and the other one came the next day. But I wish they'd met her. I think if you don't see her, I guess if you don't see the baby, they're not real to you. And maybe that's part of the problem that we have in society, is that because people didn't meet the baby, and that's for any lost parent, they're not
Mm,
real.
mm,
But she was real.
mm,
Like, for me, no one else saw Rahul in that way other than me and my parents to a certain extent, because he had to go and tell them. They weren't in the room. He had to go and tell them what was about to happen. And I just I couldn't I couldn't cry in front of other people. I couldn't do it. And I don't think I cried that much. I went straight into, right, we need to try again. Like, when can we go again? When can we try again? Um, it's just it's like nothing else. It's not, you can't describe it. You can't, yeah, there's just, and there's so much regret attached to it.
mm,
And there's nothing you can do. You can't, there's no do-over. Like, you can't redo what happened. Um, I think the biggest thing I regret is that I was not the last one to hold her, that we were not the last ones to hold her. That, I think that's my biggest regret. And I wish I could change that, but I can't. And I think that is something that should be taken up with hospitals. Um, that if parents give permission for other family members to meet their child, to see their child, they should be asked, are you happy for them to hold them? And we should be
mm,
asked that question, because if somebody had asked me that question, I would have said no. No, I'm
mm,
not happy for somebody else to hold my baby and be the last person to hold them. I was
mm,
not happy with that. But there was nothing I could do, so I have to live with that.
mm. Did you get to do funeral or anything of that sort?
So we chose to do a cremation, um,
Mm,
and we decided to have it just the two of us. Um, like, we wrote a letter. We said we only had, I think we had 30 minutes, and we were lucky because my brother-in-law took the day off work, so he offered to drive us to the funeral home, the crematorium, and waited while we were having the funeral, and then took us back to my mum and dad's. Um, like, having my sister and my brother-in-law that day was really helpful, because they were so empathetic, and just trying so hard to, like, be there for us in whichever way that they could. Um, and they didn't make it about them. It was about us. The whole thing was, it was about us. but there were other family members who actually just made it about them, and I just wasn't. It was just like, it's not about you. You've not lost your baby. You didn't give birth to a baby that died. I did. It was, we lost our child. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, it was just a strange, strange day. So yeah, we did have a funeral. Um, we cremated her, and then we had like a gathering at the house. Like, people came and had food, um, and all of that. And then we didn't scatter the ashes until, I don't even know whether, I can't remember if it was that year or the year after. Actually, it might have been that year, but I genuinely cannot remember if we scattered the ashes that Diwali or the Diwali after. I think it was that
Mm.
Diwali. We scattered the ashes that day. But even there were problems on the funeral day. The people who were unhappy with the way that we'd done things and thought that we'd left them out, and included other relatives and not them, and just thought, why today of all days? Like, why can't you just give us a break? Why can't we just
Mm.
have one day? Um, but it was all about them.
Was it the only thing that they got offended for? Or
Oh yeah, they thought that we'd invited other people to the funeral and not them, even though that
mm.
wasn't the case. Um, they didn't agree with the fact that we had the funeral, just me and him. Didn't agree with the fact that we cremated her. Um, didn't think it was right that we had the like the gathering at my parents' house. Um, the list goes on. Just whatever issue that could be brought up, the issue was brought up, and I just don't. And the funny thing was, it wasn't brought up. It wasn't brought up on the day. It was brought up months later,
Mm.
like months later, when, like, I think I didn't know it at the time, but I was probably going through postpartum depression, but didn't know because you don't read that far in the book. You don't read that far and find that information out. No one tells you that you can get postpartum depression after you've given birth to a baby that died. In fact, you're probably more likely to have it after you've given birth to a
Mm.
baby that died. So
Mm.
it just it was just baffling that people could do the things they did in the 6 months after Jaya's death. I still, to this day, I cannot fathom what was going through people's heads.
Mm.
And in a way, I'm glad, because the fact that I can't understand it means that I wouldn't ever do it. But also, it's been it's been enlightening and really eye-opening for us to
Mm.
see what's gone on, and to not to be that way, but also to, it's just showing people's true colors and what people are really all
Mm.
about. And it's that they're selfish and only think about themselves and don't care about anybody but them.
Mm. Yeah, and I really like what you said about it shows true color of people who is there for us and who is not. And people at this point in time, like that's when our, like I remember the first few months I was just blank. I didn't even begin grieving, or I was still in shock for a month or so, and when I was ready to talk, people have already moved on or said their complaints and left, and I was just left with no support, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
going through depression. And no amount of support. And that's when I started posting on Instagram, trying to find, will it reach anyone? Is there anyone out there who will inbox me from my followers or from my friend list and say, I have gone through this,
Hmm.
I know what you're going through. So I was seriously hunting for people down, and people have already moved on. And the most part of the people, it was their part of grieving, that all the complaints that they put forward, all the blaming that they did, it was their part of grieving and they were done. And then it was up to me to consume all that they put on me and to process also their grief as a part of my process that I'm going through. I really think that is unfair, but that is exactly what happens to many of us in the baby loss community, and especially with baby loss. It doesn't happen with an adult loss, unfortunately. People are very understanding. Even after months, they tell their name. They talk about anecdotes and stories, what happened in their lives, like if it's a grandma or father or mother who has passed. But when it's a baby, then the story stops.
I think for me, like it started with the pregnancy announcements, and it was
Mm,
basically like an influx. It was like one after the other for months and months and
mm,
months, and I couldn't catch a break, and it was
mm,
really difficult. And I've just recently posted on my Instagram
mm,
about pregnancy announcements, and it's really not about being jealous. It's really not. It's
mm,
nothing to do with them. It is
mm,
it's really triggering to be around people who are pregnant when you have lost a baby. You know the
mm,
absolute worst thing that can happen. And what struck me was somebody somebody said that my congratulations message to them was all about me. I had my husband check the message before I sent it, and he disagreed with that person. Um, but my congratulations message to them was all about me, when essentially what it was congratulations, really happy for you. I remember how excited I was at that time, when it was us. I really wish we could be there and celebrate with you, but we're grieving. We're grieving the death of our baby. She hadn't even been cremated for it hadn't even been 2 months at that point. We're still really fresh. And
mm.
all I got back was a smiley face. And it was like, it was essentially what I was saying. I'm happy for you, but I'm sad for me.
Yeah.
And all I got was a smiley face, and that was it. And I
Is it
just,
because they didn't know what to tell you, or is it like, did the conversation continue?
oh, it got better because then a few months later, I was told that
Mm,
I'd made that message about me, and then that that person had really struggled, and that they couldn't be there for me, um, because they were going through their own thing and they were worried about losing their baby. And I literally just thought, how dare you?
mm,
How dare you talk to me about being worried about losing your baby when my baby died? I was so angry that this person thought it was appropriate to say that. How insensitive.
mm,
Like, how in this situation are you making yourself the victim
mm,
when you're absolutely fine? Your pregnancy is fine. There's nothing wrong with you, but I should feel sorry for you because you're scared about losing your baby. But my baby died.
mm,
I'm not scared of losing my baby. My baby died. They are
mm,
two different things. I was also worried about what could happen during my pregnancy, because there were two people who were close to me who'd lost their babies around the time I got pregnant. But I would never have thought to say that to them,
Mm.
ever. Never, ever would I have thought to say that to them, because I don't have a right to, because my baby didn't die. I was still pregnant.
Mm.
And it just really strikes me that there are people out there who, even in that situation, make themselves the victim when you're the one who has suffered.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is a pattern that recurs in
Mm.
my life, with certain people, and I just have to just accept that that's just how it's going to be, and try not to get too annoyed, even though I do still get quite irritated.
Mm.
But I just think it's really unfair, um,
Mm.
like to compare your non-situation with
Mm.
my very real struggle to
Exactly.
conceive, to carry to term, and to now cannot
Mm.
conceive. Like,
Mm.
how is it a comparison? I can't understand.
Mm.
And he gets equally annoyed by it as well.
I'm curious to hear what is Rahul's reaction in all this when people comment like this, or like in general, how is he coping with?
I think at this point, he's done, because we've given people enough chances to do better, to improve, to be more empathetic, be sympathetic. We've tried to get the message out there as to this is how you support people, and the support's not coming from certain circles. So what we've ended up doing is, um, not cutting them out completely, still seeing if there's a chance that it can be salvaged, but the same things keep happening. So at some point, you kind of have to just give up and say, you know what? It's been almost 5 years now, though technically it's 7 if you count the cancer. So it's been 7 years now. Nothing's changed. They've not supported us through the cancer diagnosis, infertility, baby loss, subsequent losses in surrogacy. So actually, they're not going to be able to support us full stop. And no, you cannot just turn up at the end when things are good, and if we do have a baby in the end, you cannot just turn up at that point and expect that things are going to be hunky dory and we're going to, you know, play happy families and happy friendship circles. That's just not how this works. If you can't be with us and sit with us in the dark, in the shit, in the bad times, then then don't expect to be sitting with us in the good times and the joy and the happiness. And what's that quote that I've seen on Instagram least recently? If your phone isn't ringing when you're drowning, don't pick up
Mm.
when you're winning.
Mm.
And that's the attitude that we are both now taking. If it ain't ringing now and you're not supporting, when you ring us in the future and things are good, we ain't picking up the phone.
Mm-hmm. I think we are making a very good point here. I just want to emphasize how important it is to have this boundary with people, that I have done the same. Like I gave them enough chances to renew the relationship, to mend what was broken. I was ready to be forgive for the hurtful comments that they have said, but over and over again they make me as a problem. Empathy is not a word I want to use here. They can't even sympathize with the situation that I'm in. And to those people, I've either said goodbyes, or if they are very crucial in my life, then I have kept their conversation at bay. I'm not going to talk to you about Elliot or anything that is meaningful to me. You will get a very superficial conversation, or a yes or no for what you are asking me.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are. But you made a
Yeah.
point there about um, things that people have said to you that are hurtful. It's
Mm-hmm.
not even just about empathy and sympathy. It is about taking
Mm-hmm.
accountability for the things that they have done wrong. And if they can't
Right.
do that, like an
Mm-hmm.
apology is saying sorry and then having a change in behavior. That's what an apology is. That is
Mm-hmm.
what apology means. If you're going to say sorry and not change, you're not really sorry. And if you're not going to grow, you're not going to learn, then what are we doing? Because if you're still stuck
Mm-hmm.
in the same place that you were 5 years ago with your personality and your mentality and all of that, and we have grown, we're already over here, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no catching up now. So if we are not even on the same level, what's the point? There's no conversation to be had. There's nothing in common, and and so I think we're just now at that point, because for us
Mm-hmm.
right now, with everything going on, like, it's about having a positive headspace, looking to the future, trying to have hope, and have people around us who are going to support us
Mm-hmm.
and be there for when we get bad news, and don't just respond with oh, or with silence. Who respond with I'm really sorry that happened to you. um who, like, I don't know, send a card, or like say, oh, let's go for a coffee, or do you want to have a chat, or you know not put the onus on us by saying that, oh, you guys make it awkward, or
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to talk to you. It's like, well, why don't you just Google what to do and what to say, rather than saying, oh, I don't know. Like, there's so much information out there. I asked Alexa this morning, how do you tell an infertile friend that you're pregnant? And it came up with a suggestion straight away. So there's no excuse. We've got social media at our fingertips. We've got Google.
Mm-hmm.
It's all out there. It
Mm-hmm.
if you know me, look on my Instagram page. It's all there. It's pretty much like a how-to guide on what to do for when your friend has experienced baby loss and you're pregnant, or how to tell your infertile loved one that you're pregnant. um, and also, like, it gives you all the information about IVF and all that stuff. That's all in there. So it's not hard.
But
If you really want to, you'll find out.
mhm.
You'll do
If you
better.
really want to, and that's the problem here. These people are unwilling to even look at our grief, even to begin to understand what we are, the depths of what we are going through. I don't know if that scares them to even think to be in our shoes. But as you said earlier, we have grown so much in our grief. They think we are stuck, but we have grown, and they are the one who are stuck. They are the one who are not willing to put in the work for the friend's sake, for the family's sake, or to keep this relationship. Then I don't we don't have anything to, we don't owe them anything in this relationship. We just want to do what's best for our family and for us. And I really agree with you that we have grown. In the past 5 years, I have grown to be more empathetic person. I have put my work, because I have been that person who has said, at least when my close friend had a miscarriage, and I said, at least this happens because of this and this. Try to move on from this, and you can do this another time. And now I realize how insensitive I was when I said that comment, because I didn't know better at that time. And now I know how hurtful my comment was. And I actually went to that person and apologized. You remember, this many years ago we had this conversation, you opened up to me, and I shut you off with this comment at least. And I'm really sorry that I did that to you. And she
And
was
like,
like, come on. It's been years. And
yeah,
she
but
was very understanding, but yeah.
I think it's okay to make mistakes. It's
Hmm.
fine to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you continue to make that same mistake over and over again, That's a problem.
Mhm.
Like, you're not learning. Like, you're not
Mhm.
learning from the mistake that you've made in the past. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just really like, I don't know. It's just really interesting because so a friend of mine has recently had a miscarriage. It's her first one. Um,
Mhm.
and when I found out, I cried. I cried because she's also Asian, and I thought, oh my God, it's going to be so hard. And I'm looking through Etsy to see, right, what can I give her? What's going to help? I don't know her. I've not known her for that long, about a year or so. And I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And I was a bit stuck. I was like, what can I give to her that won't be offensive, that she
Mhm.
might think and look at and find comfort? It's really hard to do that. So I understand from other people's perspectives that
Mhm.
it's really hard to know what to do because you don't know this person well enough, or you don't think you know
Mhm.
what the right thing to do is. But it's not difficult. It really isn't. Like, I just went on
Mhm.
Etsy, I had a look, and I was like, okay, I like that. I think this would be quite nice. I hope she likes it. I like that. I want her to feel like her pregnancy was acknowledged. That's all it
Mhm.
is. But also,
Mhm.
then I want to give her some comfort and there's be something for her husband as well. And I told my manager, I was like, oh, I've because it's a work friend. And I told my
Mhm.
manager, and she was like, oh, that's so nice. And I'm like, it's nothing that I wouldn't have wanted someone to do for me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, the things that people have done for me that mean the most, it's not the gifts.
Mhm.
It's not just remembering her on her birthday. It's the all year round me having a safe space to talk about Jaya, to talk about what our struggles are, to discuss that, our last IVF round didn't work, or and having a safe space to do that where the response is not just going to be, oh, and then end of story.
Mhm.
That's what matters. If I can talk
Mhm.
about my child without feeling awkward, that means more than anything else. It means more than the token gift that we get once a year, or the tick, it's a tick box to say, oh yeah, we've put her name in a card, or we've uh, given this gift. Um, it it's more than that. It, it's the thought. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year, we got family friends, um, and their youngest son would have been a month younger than Jaya.
Mhm.
And so these two boys have been brought up knowing who Jaya is, that she's a star in the sky, and she's their cousin, and she's shining bright down on them, and all that stuff, all the stuff that we say. And so my friend had sent me a voice note and a picture of her older one holding a star. So I think it was November, and then he'd sent a voice note to say, "Oh, I saw this star and I thought of Jaya, and I wanted to show you," sort of
Mhm.
thing. And like, Jaya's a shining star in the sky, and the fact that those children are being brought up to know who Jaya is, which is exactly what
Mhm.
we wanted to happen,
Yes.
and they're respecting that they talk. So they came to our house the other week, and my friend was like, you know, I said to them, "Oh, we're going to Kaka and Kaki's house because that's what they call us." And she was like, "Do you know which Kaka and Kaki?" And they were like, "No." And they go, "Going to Jaya's mummy and daddy's house." That's how they
Mhm.
know. And it was interesting because he came up to me, the old one, and was like, "Kaki, where's Jaya?" And then his cousin was like, "Oh, don't be silly. You know where Jaya is. She's in heaven. She's looking at
Mhm.
us."
Mhm.
Those are two separate parents who
mm,
have taught their children about Jaya, and they're just
mm,
family friends. My sister does it. Like my nephew and niece know who Jaya is. Um, she's a star. She's in the sky. My nephew's a bit older, so he understands a little bit more now. He
mm,
knows that she died. He knows that she was ill. He'll, if we're by ourselves, sometimes he'll ask. Last time I went home, we were, I was getting him changed because he, I picked him up from school, and he was like, "Massey, where's Jaya?" And I was like, he goes, no, he goes, "What happened to Jaya?" And I was like, "You know what happened to Jaya?" And he's like, she got ill. I'm like, "Yeah." I go, "Do you remember Massey got ill, and then Jaya got ill, and she was too little." I go, and I was like, and he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, her she wasn't big enough, and then she died because she was too ill."
mm,
And I was like, "Yeah." Um, so he understands that, and he understands significance of of Jaya, and he comes to our house and he sees the Jaya bear and he picks it up, and it was Rahul's birthday the other week, and I'd asked him before we did the cake. I was like, make sure that you come and sit next to Masa, and bring Jaya bear with you. And he went and got her as soon as we said the cake's getting done. He went and got her, sat her, sat
mm,
with her in front of him, and like sat next to Rahul, and they did happy birthday, and he's like got Jaya bear in his hands and is like, look, Masa, like it's Jaya saying happy birthday sort of thing. Um, and they just like the next morning they were dancing, and they got Jaya bear out of the corner, and they're dancing with her, and they're like, "Oh, it's your turn to dance with Jaya bear." And it's so lovely that she is a part of their family.
mm,
Um, they know she's their sister, their cousin, and that's what they're taught. That is the narrative they have been given by their parents, because their parents understand and they love us and love her enough to do that.
mm,
I didn't think that I didn't know that that's what people would do. Like I did not understand the depth of
mm,
the love that people have for us and for Jaya, for some of the things that they've done. My sister, for example, asking if they could name their daughter, their daughter Jaya as a middle name to
mm,
keep her name alive in their family. I didn't I didn't know that when people wrote a card, and I had some cards upstairs I just put on the side that I need to sort out, and one of them was from Jaya's birthday last year, and it was like like a small card about this big, and on the other side they had like a whole page of writing, um, about Jaya, about how they wish they'd met her, and I just thought it's that is more important than a gift. Like it's
mm,
the thought, it's the care, it's it's even not knowing from experience what we're going through, what we've been through. It's that want to what it's that want to comfort us, and and show how much they care by acknowledging her existence. And
mm,
I think that is what is missing with a lot of people. And I don't think people
mm,
really understand how powerful that is for grieving parents, for the acknowledgement of their child in that way. Not token gesture tick boxes, actually genuine all year round care.
mm,
Unfortunately, we don't get that from everybody, and I think that's just the case for all lost parents, especially in our communities.
mm,
Um, but it's unfortunate that it happens
mhm,
so often, and by people who you thought would really be there in your time of
mm,
need,
mm,
and
mm.
aren't.
You are spot on about telling that it's the acknowledgement. We don't need token, we don't need gifts. You don't have to even do big gestures like keeping our daughter or son's middle name as a middle name, be part of the family. No, nothing. It's just the acknowledgement of telling his name or telling Jaya's name. It's all that matters. It's that simple. It's sending, when we post about their birthdays, it's wishing them happy heavenly birthday. Even though it doesn't make any sense to you, it means the world to us.
Hmm.
That part about acknowledgement, I really like how you framed it.
Yeah, it's a small thing for someone to do that such a big impact on us.
Yes.
But it works both ways because the small
Mm-hmm.
thing that you don't do also has a
Mm,
big negative impact on us.
exactly.
And you have to care enough to not want to have a
Mm,
negative impact on us.
mm,
But not everybody has that level of sensitivity or care for
mm,
for other people.
mm-hmm. We talked about what was helpful and what was not, and we have talked a little more about acknowledgement. I want to ask you now a difficult question. You did go through two more losses, early miscarriages, after you have lost Jaya. Could you tell me how it was for you to go through the other loss?
I think they were both difficult because our second our second loss, we'd been like trying to get to a transfer um, for about 9 months. So like we'd started IVFing again. So it was during COVID. So towards the end of 2020. So around September time, I think we started
Mm,
trying to prepare for a transfer to transfer more embryos. And each time we do the because we hadn't done a frozen embryo transfer before, so it was new for us. So each time it's like to do a transfer, your lining has to be at least 7 millimeters thick. It's not very thick, but that's how thick you want it to be. I was hitting like 4 millimeters, like 3.5 millimeters after after 2 weeks of estrogen, which should have bulked up my lining. So we did the first one. Okay, it didn't work. So it didn't even get to transfer. Tried the second time, upped the medication, didn't really make any difference. So the third time, it would have been around Christmas, they were like, right, we're not going to do anything this one, but we want you to come in on the day you've ovulated um, to see if your lining thickens naturally. Well, that was a bust because it didn't. It was still around 4. So what we realised was the medication wasn't actually doing anything.
mm,
So the medication wasn't bulking up my lining; it was just staying the same as it was if it would be natural. So tried again in the February by after doing they did a hysteroscopy and did some more tests. That they changed the protocol. Nothing, nothing. That next bit. And at this point, I was like, well, what the hell do we do? So I suggested adding. I was googling, well, what do people do when they've got a thin line? Clearly, this must be an issue. So what I found was that there's been some success with vaginal Viagra. It's called sildenafil. Is the name of the actual drug, and Viagra is its
mm,
like brand name, I guess. So vaginal Viagra is supposed to help thicken the lining because it improves blood flow. So we tried that, um, and then also did like I think we did an era cycle as well. So we did a mock cycle
mm,
to see how the lining thickened, and then also to check whether the implantation window was correct, to how many days of progesterone you needed. So the lining got to about 6 point something that time. So they were like, yeah, we're happy with this. Let's test everything, and everything came back okay. So let's do this again. Did it again in the July, and it worked. So it's a really quick positive test, maybe 4 or 5 days in. I started feeling sick really early as well. I was really
mm,
excited. So I was having like 2, 3, 4 days, the line getting darker. Messaged my sister. I sent her a picture of the test. She was really excited. 2 or 3 days later, the line, because you're testing, like, you test every day. I don't think people
mm,
understand that. Like you're testing every day to see if the line gets darker. And they tell you not to do that, but that is what you do. That's just normal in the world of infertility. And that day when it was light, I just thought, oh God, what's happening? So I called the clinic and I was like, look, I've got a positive test. But I've just taken another test and the line's really faint. I don't know what's going on. Called me in for a blood test, had the blood test, got the results the next day. HCC levels 15 or 25 or something. It was in the grey zone. So they were like, right, we have to do a repeat one in a couple of days. So I went back a couple of days later, did it again. It was my birthday. T1. It's my birthday, 23rd July 2021. And went to the clinic. I think I might have gone the day before. Results came back, HCG 0. So they call it a chemical pregnancy. Biochemical pregnancy. I hate the term, but that's what they call it. But you were pregnant and now you're not. You saw the 2 lines and now you're not. And I now hate my birthday. Even more than I hated it before. Now I hate it even more. And the hate before was just because, like my daughter's not here, like my baby's not here. I don't like my birthday. I don't like celebrating anything. And then this happens on my birthday. And it's shit. It's awful. I think I started bleeding a couple of days later because you come off the progesterone and you start bleeding quite quickly. But I kind of just got back up and was like, right, let's go again. What do we need to do to make it better? What do we need to do to make it different? Like, how can we improve this? How can we do what needs to be done? So we carried on, kept getting failed transfers after that. So we could get to transfer, just kept failing. I went for more tests. We tried spoke to other clinics, got second opinions, got told by one consultant to just give it up and go down the surrogacy route because he remembered me from when I was having the cancer treatment. And we decided to carry on because I was like, I'm not ready to give it up yet. I'm not ready to give up. Even though we had done some research around surrogacy at that point, started looking into we've got embryos in the Czech Republic. Do we just send them out into Georgia and start doing surrogacy? We stopped trying. I was going through tests like to check for natural killer cells. That's what had been recommended. So we were doing that. We were on a break from IVF at that point. We went on holiday to Lisbon. While we were out there, I started feeling I felt a bit off. I was like, what's going on here? Like, I don't feel right. And I was off my food. I was like, what the hell's going on? And my period is like clockwork. And I was a couple of days late. So I send Rahul out to go and find a pregnancy test. Not really thinking anything of it, like at all, because as far as I was concerned, I can't get pregnant naturally. Did the test. 2 freaking blue lines. I was like, what the hell? And at the same time thought, this is it. This is the miracle I've been waiting for. I've got pregnant naturally. Oh my God. Oh shit, we're in Lisbon. Oh shit, I've got to get on a flight. What if something happens? So at this point, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I've got to go back to work in August or in September. There is no way in hell I'm going to be able to do this job and be pregnant. We already know my history. We know that my track record's not great. So how am I going to get out of this situation? Because at this point I was looking to leave. So how the hell can I get out of work like quickly and actually leave early with this being the situation? So we got home. told like my best friends, because I tell them every time, um, quietly told my mum, and we'd taken my nephew and niece and my sister and brother-in-law to some sort of like outdoor adventure park, and I took my nephew to go and see some, what they call little meerkats, and I messaged Rahul to be like, will you tell them that we're about, I think at that point we're about 5.5 weeks. Like, will you tell them that we're expecting? And so he did, and they were so excited for us. And then we had the conversation, because at this point we'd signed the surrogacy contracts. And so I said to my brother-in-law, I was like, I don't know what to do now about this. And he was like, you signed the contract, just do it. Because he's like, don't take this the wrong way, but you're older, first of all. And he's like, it took your sister a fair bit of time to recover from having the first. Are you really gonna, do you really think you could do it back to back? And like, she was younger when she had their kids. So she's younger than me anyway. So I was like, okay, great. Wow. Okay. Whew, amazing. Pregnant. And then my parents had come up to Preston for Jaya's birthday gathering that year. And I told my dad. He was like typical dad, like didn't get excited, just like, oh, amazing. And then a few days later, I started spotting. So here we are, 6.5 weeks, the furthest we've got since Jaya, thinking this is it, like what a miracle. I ended up in A&E. Test was like faint line. Did a scan, nothing was there. And my HCG level was about, I think it was in the hundreds, maybe 500 or something, maybe less. It might have been 100 and something. I can't actually remember. And I just thought, what do I need? Like, why? Like the third time this has happened, why isn't it working for me? Why can't I be that miracle? That person who miraculously gets pregnant naturally after trying for IVF, because you hear about it all the time. Do you not? Like, everyone, there's so many people that have that story, like, oh, we tried IVF and then we got pregnant naturally, and you're just like, oh, when is that going to be me? And then at that point, so this is like August 2022, I went back to work. When I started my new job in the October, we decided to try again with IVF with our current clinic, and that's when we didn't get the lining to what it needed to be for a transfer. So that transfer got cancelled. So you can't compare the three losses, but just because they were early, it doesn't make it's different. It's still painful, but it is different. You know, Jaya, I got to hold, I got to see, I I she was a baby. So it's like, even though you feel validated in being able to grieve a baby that you held, a lot of people don't see that is valid. So how much less valid must early pregnancy feel when there isn't a fetus to hold or a baby to hold, or you don't see the heartbeat on the scan, and or you don't even get to see anything on the scan because your pregnancy started developing early, or it might have been ectopic, or like, it still hurts, it's still painful, because you still look 9 months ahead and plan your life with this baby. You still calculate what your due date is and think, oh, this is how things are going to be next year. And whether that is with a surrogate or with yourself, like, you are looking ahead. And it's just a different kind of I can't even explain it, to be honest, but it hurts. And it's so invalidating when the response you get when you tell people, again, is like, oh, and you just think, God, like he's that insensitive as a human being that your response is, oh, or the
Mm.
worst one, God will make it happen. I hate it.
Wow.
Hate that. Don't talk to me
Yep.
about God because God ain't been very good to me. All right. Like, let's be honest.
Mm.
So, I hate that. I'm like, don't talk to me about God. You talk about God. If God's been good to you, that's great. But I am, I struggle to understand why God would do this. And maybe there's a reason at the end of it, but I do struggle to understand why God has done this to me.
Mm. I definitely plan to do another episode, especially to dive into the religious aspect of these kind of comments. And I really want to ask questions to experts in theology to make me understand, because I do know that we live in a broken world and things like this happen, and people putting God as a responsible person for when good things
Good
happen.
things.
And exactly, when good things happen, and when it doesn't happen, then I'm not favored of God. I'm so sorry, like I might have sinned, or uh, maybe I'm just a bad person.
And I question that.
Yeah,
I
but
said it to Rahul the other day. I was like, I go, what have I done? What have I done wrong in my life
Mhm.
for this to keep happening to me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I a bad person? Have I done something wrong in a past life, or have I done something wrong in my past to 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 have all of this stuff happen? And it literally is like a 7 year streak of bad luck. Like, that's kind of where we're at
Mhm.
this point. It's
Mhm.
not like it's been like one thing or two things or three things. It literally has been one thing after another for 7 years. And yeah, it's, you just question everything, don't you? And I don't know the
Mhm.
answer is. I don't know what I've done wrong. My mum, I said it to my mum. I don't know when I said it to my mum, but I said it to my mum a while back, and she was like, "You've not done anything wrong."
No.
But then there's no answer as for why it keeps why this has happened to me. And I try and spin it to think, maybe there is something, there is a reason behind it. I just can't see it yet. And I try and find reasons, like, is it to show me who should and shouldn't be in my life? Is that one of the lessons that I have to learn? Is that something that this is showing me? Like, is
That
all this experience to show me, um, how I can be a better person?
it's a cruel way to learn your lessons, isn't it? Like, why is other people not given the same test or same struggles, and they also have something to learn, but why does it happen not to them but to us? And the one who are suffering is always the person who has to say, what is a good thing that I can learn from this lesson? I mean, shitty things happen in life to all of us, and to try to make sense of it, and to think that there's a reason, and we the grievers are the ones who are asked to search for it, like search for
Mm,
what is life trying to teach you. It's so cruel, I think, and it's not right, and that is not how it should be.
no, it shouldn't. But you do naturally. I guess you naturally ask why, don't you? Like, you
Mhm.
want to
Yes.
know why, and
Mhm.
that's the only thing that you can think of, because to admit that you're that horrible a person,
Mhm.
it's difficult. And I ask that question all the time to myself, to other people, like, what have I done so
Mhm.
wrong? Um, and the responses I get are literally nothing. Like, you've not done anything wrong. It's just it's just bad luck. Like a couple of my friends call
Mm,
it the shit stick that
mhm.
I haven't got rid
Right.
of yet. But I wouldn't want to give it to anyone. Like, I wouldn't want anybody else to go through any of this. It's horrible. It's not nice. It's really difficult. It's so hard to try and try and try and try and try and get nowhere. And
Mm,
it's not like we're any closer a to an end point. Like, it's really difficult to keep going. And I don't think people really understand how hard it is. And because I don't really talk about it, how difficult it is,
mm,
because then you get accused of like being bitter, or you're
mm,
you're a whiner, or
mm,
you're complaining and you're not grateful. And it's like, and you just and I think, like, when people say that, like, when people accuse you of being ungrateful, I kind of just want to turn around and say, well, you have two kids and you are complaining about having to look after the children that you have produced, and maybe you should be grateful. It's a privilege what you have.
mm,
It, like, the number of things that have to go right for you to bring a
mm,
living baby home, it's like millions. And we
mm,
know it's millions because
mm,
we know the million things that can go wrong when
mm,
it comes to your baby dying or infertility. So when
mm,
you put all that together, yes, millions of things have to go right for you to bring that baby home. But if people don't look at it that way, because it's the norm is people getting pregnant and bringing their babies home. So they don't understand how lucky they are that everything went right. You know, it's
mm.
a really strange little
Exactly.
thing.
Mm, yeah. Now you are pursuing surrogacy journey after everything that you have been through. How is that going, and how was that decision for you and Rahul, and where are you guys now?
So the decision was really difficult for me. It was difficult for me to let go of trying myself. But we got to the point where I didn't really have a choice. Like, pre-cancer came back for the second time. So that's the third time that I've had it. Um, so I went to the oncologist, and she basically said, I think it's time to stop. It's happened too many times now. You know, surrogacy is an option. You should take it. Like, just focus on that. We can't keep putting your body through this. But also, it's not working. Like, when we're doing it, it's not working. And I had to
Mm,
treat the pre-cancer. So we already knew by treating the pre-cancer, it's the Mirena. The Mirena really thins my lining. The last time we had the Mirena for 6 months, we took it out. It took almost a year to get my lining to a normal level, ready for a transfer. And even then, we still don't know what other issues that there are, but then because I was still miscarrying. So the odds are not in my favor. So the decision, the thinking, the logic behind it was that there might be more of a chance for a surrogate who's fertile, because they have to be fertile, um, would get pregnant with my embryos, with our embryos. Um, so far we've we've had two separate journeys. So one in Georgia, which didn't really work out, with two transfers and neither took. And now we've moved on to Argentina. Um, Unfortunately, it's the same situation. We've had two transfers, they haven't worked. And that's been the last couple of months. Um, and that's been quite difficult, because when you think that you're the problem and you're kind of told that surrogacy is going to be a good option for you, kind of naively you think, oh, it's going to work. And they're
mm,
tested embryos, they're normal, and it's not worked twice. We've only got two embryos left. Um, so we're also going to be making more embryos, but not with my eggs. We're going to be doing donor egg surrogacy as well, in the hopes that maybe somebody who's younger, who can produce better quality eggs, with Rahul's sperm, will produce better results for us. So that's kind of where we're at. And all we can do is keep hoping that it works, that, that it only takes one, as they say, and maybe the next one is the one, or the one after that, or the one after that. You keep trying, don't you, because you want it that much. And we've come so far. Can we give it up? And actually, somebody that I follow on Instagram, she said, because she's been through surrogacy twice, she said, "You're so close." She was like, "You're so close. Don't give up. You're almost there. Don't give up." So we're not going to give up. We're going to keep trying until we bring a baby home, or we become bankrupt. Whichever one comes first.
There's also that part of like that people that don't understand that it's actually financially draining to do this process. People think like, oh, you don't have kids, your life must be lala happy, but
I could have paid off my mortgage.
mm,
Yeah, I could have paid off my mortgage by now if we'd spent what we'd spent on fertility treatments on the house. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how
wow,
expensive it is. It's not cheap.
no,
So you're kind of a bit like, your kid, when you have kids, it's expensive. But for us, trying to have children is proving to be even more expensive. And, we're just fortunate that we have decent jobs, we're good at saving, we have some financial support for this specific, surrogacy and fertility journey. Not everybody has that. So I understand how lucky I am that I have that support, because not everybody has that. For a lot of people, once you hit this kind of level, that's it. They stop because they can't afford it.
mm.
So yeah, I know how lucky that we are, even though it doesn't feel like we're lucky, if that makes sense.
And that is very understandable, the emotional turmoil that you and Rahul are going through. I mean, people who have children, they have children to spend money on. I mean, it's at the end of the day, you when you buy things for your kids, you see them and you be happy because they are
They're
happy
happy.
and you see their happiness, and that satisfies you in a way. And here you just you're just throwing money out of the window, aren't you?
It feels like it sometimes, yeah. Like you throw money at something, but it's nothing sticking. There's not. There's no
Yeah,
happiness. There's no
yeah, yeah.
happiness at what you're spending, because we're not really getting a return on it yet.
Hmm, hmm.
So
But in the hopes that you will
yeah, it's
get
not.
your happy ending.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee. There's no
Yeah.
guarantee in this. Like, there's no
Mm,
guarantee that surrogacy is going to work.
mm.
We can only hope that it does, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah, that's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long, a long winding road.
Yeah. And I just want to, in order to conclude our conversation, I want to ask, what does the word happy ending mean to you now?
Ideally, 2 children at home, and we are just consumed by them. That is what I would see as a happy ending. Um, Surrounded by people who love us, who have continued to support us through this journey and who will continue to remember Jaya with us and teaching our future children that they had a big sister who's in the star, or they have a big sister who's in the stars and who's looking over them always. That's the happy ending. And maybe lose a few people along the way. That would probably be quite nice. Not to death, just not in my life. To make that clear before someone thinks that I'm cursing someone. No, just out of my life, not gone from the earth, just out of my life would be quite
Not
nice.
here not here two women sitting and wishing death on other people. No,
No,
that's
no,
not.
definitely not. I just don't need it around me. Like, take your negative energy over there, please, and leave me alone would be quite nice. That would be a good happy ending as well. Negativity, go away.
Yeah, right.
Positive vibes, come to me. That would be really nice.
Right. Oh, Vaishali, thank you so much for this very deep conversation that we had today. I'm really, really glad that we did this. I really wish you the happy ending that you deserve. And you're one of the most kind-hearted person, very empathetic, strong-willed person that I've met on this journey of infertility and baby loss. And I just wish you all the best from the bottom of my heart. And I think anyone in our community and anyone listening to this will wish the same for you. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing your story with us today.
No, thank you for having me. And yeah, just like make sure you tell all that to my haters, yeah, because there's a few of them. But how nice I am and all that stuff, because I'm not really. Sorry, just I can't help it. I can't take a compliment. It's a really bad trait of mine. I'm really glad that I got this chance to share and to share my story and use my voice. Yeah. You were going to say something there. What were you going to say?
Thank you. And I was about to say the dark humor. Actually, without dark humor, I don't think anyone in our community would survive. It's I don't know if it's good or bad. Probably a therapist has to tell us to
It's
survive.
really inappropriate. It's really awful. And I'll give you an example. When I found out last year that I had to go back to oncology because of the pre-cancer, I was at work and one of my colleagues, he made a joke about he said something like, oh, it's like being in a cancer ward. And I was like, I was in one yesterday. And there was another lady, there was another team member in the room, and she just looked at us and was like, what? I feel like I've come into a really inappropriate conversation. And I was like, oh, don't worry, it's just a joke. And he was laughing because he understood like the darkness of my humor about cancer, but having been being the one who had lived this situation. And I messaged him later and I was like, dude, I really shouldn't have said that, and I'm so sorry if it's inappropriate. And he was like, no, it's absolutely fine, like, you're good. But you just everything's dark. It's all morbid, inappropriate, and people just don't get it, but we do, and that's what's important.